Before dawn on the 29th of May, 1453, a man in imperial purple is standing in a breach in a wall, and he is taking his regalia off.
Deliberately, so that nobody can identify his body afterwards.
He draws his sword and charges into the gap, into a wall that has protected his city for 1,000 years and is now full of janissaries.
He is never seen again. No grave was ever found.
And by sunrise, an empire that began with Augustus and ran unbroken through 15 centuries of emperors has ceased to exist.
And a 21-year-old sultan is riding through the gates of the greatest city in Christendom.
Constantine XI Palaiologos, last Roman emperor, he ruled for 4 years and commanded perhaps 7,000 men.
And died defending a city the rest of Europe had quietly decided was not worth saving.
Which is the part of this story that stays with me. It isn't really a story about a siege. It's a story about being abandoned in slow motion over about 50 years.
So start with what he actually inherited, because by 1449, the Roman Empire was mostly a rumor.
At its height, Byzantium, and that's a later historian's word, they called themselves Romans, straightforwardly, right to the end.
Which matters because in their own understanding, nothing had ever fallen. There had been no break. The empire of Augustus was still operating.
At its height, it had ruled from Italy to Syria to North Africa. Constantinople was the largest and richest city in Europe for centuries.
Perhaps 500,000 people, a harbor taxing the trade of 2 continents, and Hagia Sophia, whose dome was the largest built anywhere on Earth for 1,000 years.
Then a long, grinding decline, and there are 2 catastrophes that really matter.
The first is Manzikert, 1071, catastrophic defeat by the Seljuk Turks, which opens Anatolia to permanent Turkic settlement.
And Anatolia was the empire's manpower and its grain. That's where the soldiers came from and where the food came from.
Lose that, and everything afterwards is managed decline, however well you manage it.
And the second catastrophe is the one that's hard to say out loud, because it was done by their own side.
1204, the Fourth Crusade. Supposedly bound for Egypt, diverted by Venetian debt politics and Byzantine dynastic intrigue, and it sacks Constantinople instead.
Christian knights looting the Christian capital for 3 days, melting the bronzers, stripping the relics, installing a Latin emperor on the Roman throne.
The 4 bronze horses on the front of St. Mark's in Venice were taken in that sack. They're still there.
The Byzantines recovered the city in 1261. They never recovered from 1204.
The wealth was gone. The fleet was gone. And Italian merchant republics now controlled Byzantine trade from inside Byzantine territory at privileged rates.
So hold on to that, because it explains something that happens later that otherwise looks like madness.
By Constantine's accession, what's left is the city itself, a few Aegean islands, and the despotate of the Morea in southern Greece.
Population down to perhaps 50,000, inside walls built for 500,000.
Whole districts inside the walls were farmland, orchards and vineyards and grazing in the middle of the imperial capital.
Foreign visitors described it as a city of ruins with an emperor in the middle of it.
And it was completely surrounded. The Ottoman Empire had grown up around Constantinople and then straight past it, holding both the Anatolian and the European shores.
The city was an island inside somebody else's country, kept alive by its walls and by the fact that previous sultans had other priorities.
Constantine himself was a soldier rather than a diplomat by temperament. He'd governed the Morea, campaigned in central Greece.
Personally brave by every account and completely unglamorous. Not a schemer, not a great orator.
And he faced an impossible political problem, and he handled it the only way available, and it cost him enormously at home.
Because the only realistic hope was Western military aid, and the price of Western aid was union with the Roman Catholic Church.
The 2 churches had been in schism since 1054, papal supremacy and theological disputes most modern listeners would find impossibly obscure.
And which 15th century Byzantines regarded as their identity, not a doctrine, who they were.
At the Council of Florence in 1439, Byzantine delegates accepted union, largely under duress, and several of them repudiated it the moment they got home.
And in Constantinople, the population was furious. A leading official is recorded saying he would rather see the Sultan's turban in the city than the Latin mitre.
And given 1204, that is not irrational bigotry. That is living memory of what the West did the last time it came to help.
Their grandparents had watched Catholic soldiers strip the altars. Now they were being told to accept a Catholic bishop's authority in exchange for Catholic soldiers.
Constantine went ahead anyway. In December 1452, the Union was formally proclaimed in Hagia Sophia.
And many citizens simply boycotted the church. They stopped going. In the last winter of the city's life, the great cathedral was half empty.
And it bought him almost nothing. A papal legate, a few hundred archers, moral support.
Venice and Genoa had commercial relationships with the Ottomans they preferred not to disturb.
And Western Europe was busy with the closing act of the 100 Years' War and a dozen private quarrels.
So he paid the entire political price of union, divided his city in its last year, and received essentially no army for it.
Meanwhile, a new sultan had come to the throne at Edirne.
Mehmed II, 19 when he took power in 1451, and here's the thing everyone got wrong about him.
He had been briefly sultan as a child, and then pushed aside humiliatingly by his own father's court. He was widely written off as young and untested.
He was, in fact, one of the most formidable strategic minds of the century, and he had decided his reign would be defined by taking that city.
There's a story that he asked an advisor what a man needed to take Constantinople, and the answer was essentially everything, and he set about getting it.
The preparation should have terrified everybody because it was completely visible.
In 1452, he built a fortress on the European shore of the Bosphorus at its narrowest point, Rumeli Hesari, opposite an existing Ottoman fort, in under 5 months.
And between the two of them, they could sink any ship going to or from the Black Sea.
Which cuts Constantinople's grain lifeline, and Constantine could do nothing about it except send an embassy, which Mehmed had executed.
Then the guns, and this is one of those moments where you can see history turn on somebody's accounts department.
An Hungarian engineer named Orban offered his services to the Byzantines first.
And they could not afford him. The Roman Empire could not meet the asking price of one gunsmith.
Mehmed could, and paid him several times what he'd asked for.
Orban cast bombards on a scale nobody had seen, the largest reportedly over 8 meters long, firing stone balls weighing hundreds of kilograms.
Dragged to the walls by teams of oxen over roads specially built for them, it took weeks just to move the gun into position.
The siege begins on the 6th of April, 1453.
The defenders number around 7,000, including roughly 2,000 foreigners.
Most importantly, a Genoese professional soldier, Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, who arrives with 700 well-armed men at his own expense and is given command of the land walls.
Against them, Ottoman forces generally estimated between 50 and 80,000, plus a fleet.
So roughly 10 to 1, and the 10 have artillery.
And yet it was close. That's what people forget. It was genuinely close for 7 weeks.
Because of the Theodosian walls, and they deserve a moment because they are the reason there was an empire left to besiege at all.
A moat, then an outer wall, then a terrace, then an inner wall 12 meters high with 96 towers.
No army had ever broken them from the outside in 1,000 years. Not the Avars, not the Arabs, not the Bulgars.
But they were built for an age before gunpowder, and Constantine did not have enough men to line their full 4-mile length.
The bombardment ran for weeks. The great guns could only fire a few times a day, and sometimes they cracked.
But they made breaches, and every night the citizens went out and filled the gaps.
Men, women, monks, in the dark, in range, filling holes with rubble and earth and barrels.
And the improvised repairs actually absorbed shot better than the rigid stone had, which is a small, extraordinary detail.
The Byzantines had one real advantage left, a massive iron chain strung across the Golden Horn.
Sealing the harbor and covering the weakest stretch of wall, which meant Constantine didn't have to defend it.
And on the 20th of April, 4 Christian ships fight their way through the entire Ottoman fleet in full view of both armies and reach the harbor.
In daylight, with everyone watching from the walls and the hills, it's a humiliation for Mehmed and a wild boost to the defenders.
Mehmed reportedly rode his horse into the sea in his rage.
And then answered it with something genuinely extraordinary.
He had a road of greased timbers laid across the hills behind Galata and hauled some 70 ships overland.
And launched them into the Golden Horn behind the chain, overnight. The defenders woke up to a fleet inside their harbor.
Which means they now have to man the sea walls as well, spreading a tiny force still thinner.
By late May, provisions are failing, relief is not coming, and morale starts to go.
And the omens start. An icon of the Virgin falls from its platform during a procession, a freak hailstorm in May, a strange light seen around the dome of Hagia Sophia and then going out.
People in the city read it as the Holy Spirit leaving. Whatever you think that light was, that is what they believed they had watched.
Mehmed offers terms: surrender the city and live, keep your lives and property. There's every reason to think he meant it.
And Constantine refuses, and his reply is the line he's remembered for.
That the city is not his to give, that it belongs to all its people, and they had all resolved to die rather than hand it over.
The final assault comes in the early hours of the 29th of May in waves designed to exhaust the defenders.
Irregulars first, the expendable ones, then Anatolian troops, then the Janissaries.
And twice the defense holds. Twice.
And then 2 things happen close together, and the city is lost in about 20 minutes.
A small postern gate called the Kirkaporta is found unlocked or forced. The sources argue about it. And a handful of Ottoman troops get inside and raise a flag on a tower.
And at almost the same moment, Giustiniani is badly wounded and carried from the walls to a ship.
And his men see their commander leaving, and they start to go with him. And the line at the crucial St. Romanus sector simply comes apart.
Is told the city is breached, and he throws off his imperial insignia and goes into the fighting.
Every account agrees he died there. None of them agree on how. He was 49.
The city is given over to 3 days of plunder by custom, though Mehmed reportedly cut it short.
Thousands killed. Tens of thousands enslaved. Families separated in the Augustion and sold.
And on the first day, Mehmed rides to Hagia Sophia, dismounts, and pours earth over his own head as a gesture of humility before God.
And orders the building converted to a mosque, and takes the title Kaiser-i Rum, Caesar of Rome.
Which is not a boast, he meant it administratively. He believed he had inherited the empire, not destroyed it.
And he made the city his capital, and rebuilt it, and repopulated it deliberately with Greeks, Armenians, Jews, and Turks.
So what's the verdict on Constantine? Because he's a hard one. He didn't make a great blunder.
He didn't. His mistake was inherited. He ruled a state that had spent 2 centuries surviving on the reputation of walls built by better-funded ancestors.
While its neighbors got stronger and its allies quietly did the sums.
He fought bravely and died well, and it changed nothing. Because by then, there was nothing left to work with.
Constantine died, and the arc of history bent away from Europe. This was History But Better podcast, episode 13.